My fellow Americans, Laos is far away from America, but the world is small. Its 2 million people live in a country 3 times the size of Austria. The security of all Southeast Asia will be endangered if Laos loses its neutral independence. Its own safety runs with the safety of us all, in real neutrality, observed by all. I want to make it clear to the American people and to all the world that all we want in Laos is peace, not war.
The reason when Laos was important was during that time, there was the Red Scare, right? So basically, fear communism. Communism gonna dominate Southeast Asia. We already have China there, and so you have North Vietnam. Now it's a communist state, and so if the country of Laos falls, then the rest of that region would fall to communism. It would turn red. So it's the domino theory, right? So if one domino falls, the rest of them would fall.
U.S. President Dwight D. Eisenhower was particularly concerned that if Laos fell, it would be a gateway to India, a communist domination of an entire hemisphere.
After the Geneva Conference in 1954, no one was supposed to be in Laos. North Vietnamese was using Laos as a staging area to resupply, and Laos was supposed to be neutral. No one is to touch the country of Laos.
In the end, neutralism was impossible.
The efforts of a communist-dominated group to destroy this neutrality never ceased. In the last half of 1960, a series of sudden maneuvers occurred, and the communists and their supporters turned to a new and greatly intensified military effort to take over.
And so the United States basically said, okay, so if North Vietnam's going to play this game, we can do the same thing. And instead of using our own troops, right, that we can use the indigenous people. And that's why Colonel Belair was sent over to train the Hmong people to fight as surrogate soldiers of the American armed forces, because they couldn't be there. Military forces can't be there, but they send CIA advisors.
Colonel Belair was, at that period of time, the CIA agent in Southeast Asia.
And when Belair got to Laos, the first person that he sought was General Wang Pao.
Colonel Belair came to ask him, Lieutenant Colonel Wang Pao, if the Royal Lao government send you ammunition, guns, I would like to ask you, if someday you and your Hmong people are going to turn the guns against the Royal Lao government, Colonel Wang Pao said that, Colonel Belair, I am an officer of the Royal Lao Army. My Hmong soldiers and I, we never turn our guns against our Royal Lao Army, and because of that, I asked you for help. 2 days after, the Royal Lao Army sent to military Dakota to drop ammunition and guns and food for Lieutenant Colonel Wang Pao and his soldiers.
In that moment, the U.S. and the Hmong became bound to one another, whether by choice or necessity, in a war to keep the communist North Vietnamese and Pathet Lao from overthrowing the Royal Lao government. Since 1961, the secret war had swallowed northern Laos. Losses were heavy on both sides. The Paris Peace Accords were signed in 1973, ostensibly putting an end to the war in Vietnam. Next door, General Wang Pao was pushing hard to continue fighting. The communist North Vietnamese and Pathet Lao had not let up. But a corner had been turned. The U.S. wanted out of Southeast Asia, and that included Laos.
Finally, they signed the Vientiane Peace Accord on February 21st, 1973.
The two sides, the communists and the Royal Lao government, were to jointly rule Laos with a third group, neutralists, providing a middle ground. All were to be equal. It was a tenuous arrangement, enemies coming together to rule. But after decades of war, the people of Laos had hope. They created a representative Congress called the National Political Consultative Council. The leaders of the three parties were meeting regularly. Optimism was in the air.
I was asked by the royal government to be part of a task force to plan for the future. My task force and I went to do workshop from North Laos to South Laos to plan for national reconciliation, social and economic development. And everywhere I went, I saw the population was very happy to see peace coming.
Laos citizens were officially going to be at peace for the first time since the start of the French Indochina War in the 50s. But the North Vietnamese and the Pathet Lao were secretly making plans to forcibly take the country.